Everybody wants life to be greater, but almost all of us get stuck at times where something stops us. Something prevents us from doing something that we really are capable of doing, whether it's turning around our body or shifting a relationship or turning around our finances or maybe just being happy and fulfilled at a different level. We get stuck with a belief of how we're not supposed to be, what we're not supposed to do, what people won't accept, what we're not capable of. Or maybe we get stuck in an emotional pattern, just being pissed off or frustrated or worried or sad or overwhelmed. Sometimes we get stuck, not so much in anything but some habits of doing things a certain way. And what a breakthrough simply is that moment in time where there's an opening, and the opening can come from a conversation, that can come from meeting somebody that inspires you. It can come from insight. It can come from watching a movie and being moved emotionally at just that right moment. It usually comes because something kind of clicked inside of something that snapped us and made us look at life through a different filter, in a different way. And it's a real breakthrough because you take that little insight, that little distinction, that little moment, or maybe that little or big emotion inside of you that says no more, I'm gonna change this, and suddenly you do something to make your life better. You break out of the impossibility of life has to be this way, or life is controlling me, and you start to take back control of your life. You start to make this shift that creates the quality of life that you really deserve. Think about it in your own life. How could you have some area of your life where you raise your standard and your life has never been the same? Maybe at one time in your life you smoked cigarettes, or you did something and you did it for years and you kept trying to change it and kept telling yourself I should. And then one day something happened. Something just clicked you over. Something took you over that kind of tipping point, and inside yourself, you said no more. It was a very, very different experience, wasn't it? Something inside of you shifted, and what was a should become a must, and you've never gone back. Is there an area like that in your life? You can think of. Everybody wants to change. Nobody wants to do it. Everybody, I should say, wants progress, but nobody wants to change. Everybody wants your life better, but nobody wants to do the push-ups. The running has an economic or emotional discipline to make it happen. But if you're watching this right now and you're still with me, some part of you wants more, and I'm saying to you, choose it on the way you're gonna choose. It is really simple. If you're in that crisis, what keeps you in the crisis is probably because you're being reinforced. No. There have been areas in your life where some point in time, you just shifted and you raised the standard. Your life changed because whatever people have their identity attached, they live. We live who we believe we are. That's just how it works. Most people overeat, or they smoke, or they drink, or they yell at people. They keep doing it because they're rewarded. Whatever it gets rewarded, gets reinforced. Whatever habit or behavior is reinforced, it comes as a habit. And then pretty soon do it long enough to become a part of personality. And pretty soon you think it's who you are, and you just keep living that way. I mean, it's easy to see this in other people, right? It's easy to see how messed up they are and how easy they couldn't. They just make some new choices. All you got to just turn on the television, some news programs, entertainment programs, and you'll hear detailed descriptions about some person who is a very powerful celebrity who is doing some stupid things. Why do we see all the stuff on television? Why do we hear about every person you could imagine? From Lindsay Lohan to Britney Spears to all the way back to the old days? It was Elvis or Michael Jackson or whoever it is that's in the news. Today, in this stage of life in your country, you're watching this. It's because we want to see other people who make bad decisions so we can feel better about our own. But the reason those people don't change, Lindsay Lohan, she's got another do why. She's putting herself at risk. She's putting other people, or she could kill someone. She goes to jail, is supposed to be 90 days, but here's the consequence. It goes to 2 weeks on before she even gets out of jail. She makes a deal for an interview and gets paid $1 million. When she gets out for the interview, what do you think? The chances of her changing when her bad behavior gets her $1 million, and I don't know if she even makes that for that much time of acting at this stage. What do you think the chances are when people around her say, it's not your fault? It's not fair. They treat you unfairly as long as we have the decision that we're not responsible, it's not our fault. We can't change anything. We have no power, so don't know about time. You watch this if Lindsay will change, but if she did it because the enabler's era's gone, she's taken responsibility and she's found something she values more than attention and money for bad behavior. That was easy to look at that with her. But what about you and I? Were you and I addicted to our problems? Were you and I reinforced so many people will have a big problem? Listen, if things were going well, you say it's going so great, your friends go, well, that's great. And after a while, they go, well, easy for you. But if you got a problem, people, hey, I understand and connect with you. Where do we get addicted to our problems? If you want to make a new choice, if you want to make a new decision today, if you want to have a breakthrough in some area of life, you have to give up the story that it's not your fault, and you got to give up the attention and love and the connection and commiserating that comes with it with other human beings. When you start to connect your true nature, suddenly there's energy available for you to set a higher standard for what you want in your life. That's what this is really all about. And when I talk about standards, when I talk about, should versus must, think about your own life. One of the key little subjects we talk about on the weekend is the 7 fundamentals for wealth and happiness. That's one of them. Well, planned economics. It's fundamental if you want to do well, join the top 5%. Anybody in this room can join the top 5%. If you will make a list of the things you want, and on my list of things now I put everything, little things as well as major things. Doesn't matter how small it is. It goes on my list. I used to just put major things, cars, homes. I don't do that anymore. I now load my list with everything. Everything, and the reason is part of the fun of having a list is checking it off. That's it, boy. At the end of the day, if you could go, got it, got it, got it, got it, got it, got it. Whatever it is, right, you get into the habit. So load up your list. The things you want. Now, when you check off something major, celebrate. That's an important point to make. Celebrate your achievements. Live it up. Have a party when you reach something you've worked for a while. See, we all grow from 2 experiences. One is called the pain of losing. The other one is called the joy of winning. We need both of them. Amplify him as much as you can, which also means make losing painful. If you set up something, fooled around, didn't get it, put it on yourself on the other side. If you did get it, congratulate yourself. Self-congratulation is a sign of maturity. Seeking congratulations is a sign of immaturity, but hey, winning and losing. See, that's what it's all about. That's the name of the game now. Some people lead such mediocre lives. At the end of the day, they don't know whether they're winning or losing. They got no clue, guy's just going through the day with his fingers crossed. Okay, here's the third category of goals. Personal development. Put those goals together. Personal development goals. That's your goal. To be stronger, more decisive. Be a speaker, be a leader, learn a language, all kinds of skills. The whole weekend seminar was designed to improve all your skills so that you walk away more skillful, and that's what you want. Personal development skills. That's what attracts. That's what brings good things to your life. The person, you become more skillful. Look at these 2 men. Do you know who they are? Most people don't. They're just a couple of ordinary guys. One, they're both gone now. But one was an ordinary beekeeper in Auckland, New Zealand, and the other a Sherpa guide from over around Nepal. Now there's Mount Everest. You know, for thousands of years, people have tried to get to the top of Mount Everest. People died doing it. It was believed it couldn't be done. People tried, but they didn't know how. And so they quit. There's a closer look at the mountain and where they placed their flag. They planted that flag in the mountain. Now, this is the 2 of them after they come down the mountain, and you know something. When they started, they did not know how, they didn't know how to get to the top of the mountain. And that's what stops most people, because they don't know how. As little kids we'd go, "Mummy, Daddy, I want this," and they say, How are you going to do that? It was a little kid. You don't know how to do it. But they did it in 1953 on the 29th of May. They were the first to get to the top of that mountain. They stood right on top of the world. You know, there have been over 1,000 people do it since then. I watched a young woman on Canadian television being interviewed, not very big. She had just come back from going to the top of Mount Everest and the reporter asked her. They said, "How does it feel now that you conquered the mountain?" We didn't conquer the mountain. That mountain can be conquered. We conquered the limitations that are within ourselves. Be prepared, understand. Put yourselves in the shoes of the people or the businesses that you're working with. The message that I just got on Cyberdust is a perfect example. If he would have put himself in my shoes, it would be obvious that Cyberdust is important to me. I'm trying to push everybody to message using it. I've volunteered, and Dave mentioned that hey, I'm gonna be answering questions long after this is over from you people from everybody sending me messages. So Cyberdust is obviously important to me. And so if you're able to do something that reflects something that's important to me or whoever it is that you're working or trying to get a job where they're trying to get an internship with. We're trying to get an investment from if you can put yourself in their shoes and put yourself in the context of what's important to them. Your chances of being successful increase 99% of 1,000 feet right. And one other point I'll leave with you right, if you're working for somebody, the best way to be successful is by reducing the stress of those around you. Yeah, it's not about you. It's always about me, but that's a different point. But it's not about you. So what? The people around you. If you're reducing the stress of the people around you, those are the people. Those people start to gravitate towards you. They want to work with you because you make going to work easier, more pleasant. You help them accomplish their goals. You help put them in a position to succeed by reducing their stress. Yeah.
I have helped people and gave to people who sued me, who lied on me, who betrayed me, who broke my heart and let me down. I have been betrayed so many times that when you don't betray me, I'm shocked. I'm scared to believe that you might be real.
If you've got somebody that's dragging, that's going down in a downward spiral, and you decide that you're just going to pour everything into them, well, then you're going to go down that downward spiral as well, and now you're not going to be able to help them. So I think you definitely have to take care of yourself as a person so that you have the platform to take care of someone else and help someone move in the right direction. Oftentimes when you think you're helping someone, you're really just enabling them. You got to detach. You got to make sure you're not becoming emotional. You got to make sure that you're seeing the person and the situation for what it really is, not what you want it to be, but what it really is, who they really are, what they are really doing. And then when you're detached, you got to make logical decisions from that point of detachment to decide whether this person can be helped and how far you're willing to go to help them. And you got to remember, you can't be a hero to everybody.
We've all been used, we've all been taken advantage of. It doesn't feel good. And when you get used and taken advantage of or manipulated, it makes you stop, think, and start looking at everybody the same way. It makes you question any and everything and everybody because you were used, manipulated, and taken advantage of. You're doing everything and operating and coming from your heart. But unfortunately, other people have malicious, evil, and vindictive intentions towards you. And all you have to do is forgive those, but more importantly, learn from it. Experience is your highest truth. And I don't want you to ignore the truth. I don't want you to disown the experience. There was an open hand from your heart to help somebody get on their feet. And once you took their hand, they took that same hand that you helped them get up with, turned it into a fist, and tried to figure out a way to knock you out.
Sometimes it takes you a minute to process what to do when right goes wrong. You're not ready for a new relationship because you can't figure out what happened in the old relationship because you said, I gave my very best and it went wrong, and so I have lost confidence in my best. Because you left me with the notion that maybe my best isn't good enough. So I'm not sure that anybody will ever see my best again. Because I did it from my heart. I did it from my heart. And now I know what young people do not know is that right can go wrong.
People who are not your children, you are under no obligation to help people. You're not responsible for another adult's happiness, well-being, or welfare. You're not responsible for that, nor should you make yourself responsible for another person. Take that pressure off you. First of all, if they didn't have your number, what would they do? I always say that. You're her friend. She's not your friend. You have a one-sided friendship. So what you gotta do is you gotta even it out. Just when the phone rings, you know not to answer because she wants something. So don't answer. Here's the best thing to do. Stop using your voicemail on your phone, because I'm gonna teach you something. And do you notice that 95% of all your voicemails are a request? Let your voicemail fill up and don't ever empty. Don't you become the 911 in everybody's life. Just stop. Release yourself under pressure. Now her number, I would just block her number. I just learned how to block numbers this past Christmas. Oh my God, did you all know that? It's the greatest, oh my God. That's what I gave myself for Christmas. My life's so good right now.
Some of y'all right now are in relationships and friendships that you are clearly being used and taken advantage of. They're either gonna come after your man when you let them live with you, come after your wife. They're jealous of who you are and all the things you have, and yet they're using you for these various things. Pay attention to people and who they really are. Don't manipulate your mind to thinking, you know what, maybe I'm just being a negative person. There's this thing called instincts, intuition, and discernment. Pay attention to them. Don't disown them, because you will end up in pain in the end if you don't move on the discernment, the instincts, and the intuition about people, things, and situations.
Despite the fact that these are some of the clearest, most easily recognized elements of strong character, in the real world, they're also some of the most difficult to find. It seems it's always been that way. In ancient Greece, the philosopher Demosthenes went searching for an honest man, and he never found one. I've been fortunate. I think I've known a great many honest people. But if I measured that number up against all the less than ethical people I've encountered, I guess I'd have to admit that even in my experience, honesty and integrity are rather rare. Why is that? I hope to provide some answers. I want to start talking about honesty by looking at the exact opposite of honest behavior. There was a time when telling a lie was very serious business. I'm speaking now of the days before lawsuits and legally enforceable contracts. In those days, lying was a very serious matter. It was also very serious if you accused someone of lying. Today, a breach of integrity in a business matter might mean calling in the lawyers. But for hundreds of years in the past, calling someone a liar was the most common way to provoke a duel. At first with swords, later with pistols. Dishonesty was treated like a personal insult that demanded immediate redress.
You have to think, you can't just feel, you have to think. You know, even when you're taking care of kids, part of what you're doing is being compassionate. But if you're too compassionate towards your kids, then you do everything for them. And if you do everything for them, then they grow up useless and they never leave and they hate you and they hate everything else too. It's a bad idea. You know, there's a rule if you're working in a place like a nursing home, and the rule is, it's a harsh rule, do not do anything for the people that you're taking care of that they can do for themselves. And so if they have to struggle to feed themselves, you don't bloody well intervene and feed them. You let them maintain their damn independence. And you have to be a hard-hearted bastard to do that, you know, to watch someone struggle like that. But you're furthering their medium to long-term independence and development, and you do the same thing with your children. Treating your children like they're endless permanent victims is a very bad idea.
And one of the problems with being really strong is that no one ever asks you if you're okay. No one ever comes to you in the same way that you generally reach out to other people, and I know because I've experienced this. I tend to be the rock that most people lean on, and where is it and how is it that you can find someone that can pull you up? It has been a challenge of mine, and it's something that really used to bother me at a real visceral level for so many years. I'm to the point where I wanted to cry. Because it's like, who can I lean on? And I know that's your problem. I know that's what you're dealing with. And you're asking me, how do I go find a mentor? How do I find someone that can support me? What I've found is that there are two types of mentors that have been most valuable in my journey to becoming a stronger version of myself. That through books. You're going to find that there are certain individuals who have written volumes and volumes of text that will support you in almost every area and endeavor in your life. But you also need someone who's there with you, who's talking to you, who you can touch and see, who's going to support you. And it's not easy to find that type of person. In fact, those that are more able to help you than others in that regard are really busy. Their time is spoken for on so many different levels. When I say I have mentors and I go see mentors, it's not that I was so lucky that some older man took me under his wing. But to get the undivided attention of someone who you know has that magnetic strength that we mentioned earlier, that you have, you're going to have to trade a portion of your energy with that person so that they can give you that, because their time is valuable.
Because you've been through some stuff, and you can help them, give them advice, give them insight over things that they may be struggling with. This is what the love circle is. We spread love. I got 18 million followers because I've been spreading love. That's what this is about, nothing else. I don't care about the numbers if I'm not trying to impact and change lives. When people write comments and tell their stories, respond to 10 people without you knowing you have signed up to be a part of the love circle. I love you. Tag whoever needs to see this video and make sure you share it.
Everyone knew the big problems that could result if you got caught, so lying to another person took a certain amount of, what's the right word, foolish bravery maybe. But there's no such risk today, is there? Some people lie all the time without thinking about it. Most people know when they're being lied to, which they may find irritating, but they just accept it. Maybe they decide to become liars themselves. In any case, very few duels are being fought. To explain this, I think we can make a comparison between how some people today feel about lying and how they feel about money. It used to be you either had money or you didn't. When you bought something and the bill came, you had to pay it or there was an immediate problem. There were only two alternatives. You took care of your debts or you were a thief. Some people would literally take their own lives if they couldn't honor their debts. I'm sure we agree that's not exactly true any longer. Many people don't feel the same kind of personal responsibility about paying debts promptly. And today, of course, we can put off paying for our purchases as long as we can make the minimum payment on our credit card. That pain that comes with having to shell out hard cash for something, the pain of maybe having to give something up in order to have this thing, we can avoid that pain. We can put it off indefinitely as plastic debt. Of course, there's going to be a high rate of interest on that debt, and the balance due can quickly mount up. But most people don't even think about that. It's a price they're willing to pay in order to have exactly what they want right now. There are many situations where it's painful to tell the truth. It's painful in just the same way that paying a big fat bill is painful. In fact, we even use the same words to talk about paying debts and telling the truth. We may talk about somebody's word being like money in the bank. We talk about being held accountable, about having to account for yourself, about being called to account. If you've done something that you're really not proud of and you're called to account for it, well, what does that feel like? How do you handle it? What are your options when you've got to explain something that makes you uncomfortable? Well, it's a bit like that moment of decision when the credit card bill comes every month. If you want to pay off the whole balance, there may be some pain and sacrifice involved. You may have to grit your teeth. You know that your life will be simpler in the long run, but it's going to hurt a little right now to pay off the new golf clubs or the new computer, or how about the 60-foot yacht? I don't actually know if you can put a yacht on a credit card, but I've certainly known people who would if they could. Gritting your teeth and paying in full can hurt. So quite often it seems easier to pay the minimum and delay the pain until next month. It's easier to float the truth of your finances off into a little imaginary plastic flying carpet and sail it into the mailbox. Of course, it's not really a flying carpet. It's more like a boomerang that's going to come around and hit you in the back of the head someday. But as Scarlett O'Hara once said, I guess I'll think about that tomorrow. For the time being, it's gone with the wind. Let me give you some good advice about avoiding a bankrupt character. Pay your ethical debts. Keep your integrity in the black. Face ugly realities with the truth as soon as they appear. When you feel that temptation to hedge, resist it immediately. Don't treat it casually. Treat it like a grease fire in the kitchen that you've got to put out before it burns your house down or fills the whole place up with so much smoke that you can't see where you're going anymore. Because that's exactly what will happen when your ethical capital runs out. You just won't be able to see where you're going anymore. Here's another way that being untruthful is like buying on credit. They're both addictive. At first, they both go down so easy, and they leave you wanting more. Any addictive behavior offers a simple, short-term escape from a problem. But that escape becomes more and more complicated as time goes on. Lying can get extremely complicated. You've really got to have an outstanding memory to be a good liar, because you're always having to create more lies that are consistent with the one you told in the first place. I'm sure we have at some time been caught up in a dilemma like that. Shakespeare had it right all along. What a tangled web we weave when at first we practice to deceive. Maybe you think I'm being a bit tough here. Am I really saying that in every instance you've got to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So if somebody asks me, how are you today? I'm supposed to say, well, I gotta be honest with you, I have a sore finger. Last night I had a headache, and I've got to admit that my foot hurts a little. No, that's not what I mean. In fact, I think there are many times when some flexibility with the whole truth and nothing but the truth is called for, and I'll be discussing those later. Outright lying, however, planned lying, lying with an ulterior motive, lying for personal gain, that kind of lying is definitely something to be avoided. But untruthfulness is so tempting today, and I want to spend a little more time on it. I want to make a clear distinction between what I call foolish lying or silly lying or stupid lying and lying that is downright evil and poisonous to the character. Boasting, bombast, blarney, bragging, these are all the same thing. They're always floating around in the atmosphere, and they can affect you at any time like catching a cold. They're mostly harmless unless you start building a whole personality around them, which has definitely happened to some people. I should mention that there's such a thing as boasting in reverse, too. People who flaunt their frugality, people who poor-mouth, people who are oppressively ostentatious in their lack of ostentation. This is actually becoming a bit more common. Keep an eye out for it.
Some of you have been giving security clearance to things and people that have no business getting near your heart. You need to learn how to guard that thing, because if you don't guard it, stuff gets in it, and what gets in it comes out of it. That's why you have to decide that I'm gonna guard my heart, and I'm not gonna let anything get security clearance. Guess what? Shame, you don't have clearance to my heart. Insecurity, you don't have clearance to my heart. Doubt, sorry, you don't have clearance. Depression, you don't belong in my heart. Loneliness, not anymore. I'm not giving you access. I'm guarding my heart so I can rebuild and become stronger. Your intake matters. What are you taking in? What are you consuming during this moment of broken heart?
Do you have those people in life that appeal to the worst in you and not the best in you? And whenever they connect with you, they bring you down to where you were before?
Who do you allow to be in your ear? What kind of relationships are you developing? Are they an asset to you, or they are a liability? Do they elevate your spirits, or do they tear you down? We get two types of people: nourishing people and toxic people. Nourishing people, they bring the best out of you. They encourage you, they inspire you, they hold you accountable. Toxic people, they are critical people, always telling you what you can't do. They're always measuring your possibilities based upon their failures. They don't know what's possible for you. My mother said, never let anybody tell you what you can't do, son, especially if they haven't done it. So as you begin to look at yourself, begin to identify the relationships that you communicate with most and say, hey, is this relationship helpful to me?
You need to learn to think, because thinking makes you act effectively in the world. Thinking makes you win the battles you undertake, and those could be battles for good things. If you can think and speak and write, you are absolutely deadly. Nothing can get in your way.
I don't care how much you murmur and complain and kick and fuss and scream and yell. When you know that God has a plan for your life, He has you tied up while you're acting crazy. Tie you up while you're trying to do your own thing. Tie you up while your ambition is out of control. Tie you up while your temper is raging. Sometimes God will tie you up till the time is right. Nothing will work. Your money won't work. Your career won't work. The boyfriend will leave. The house will sell. Because when God has you tied up, He's not going to let you get away. Has there anybody in here that's ever been tied up? When I look at how my friends got loose, I thank Him for tying me up. I wasn't happy about it then, but I'm glad about it now.
Feelings will lead us astray. Feelings can get us into trouble. And throughout life, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to lose your temper and say things you regret. You're going to get up some mornings and feel like being depressed, feel like being impatient, feel like getting upset. See, the feelings are always going to be there. But we've got to learn how to follow wisdom and do what we know is right and not just follow our feelings around. I heard somebody say, I can feel my emotions rising, but I made a decision not to get on board. Just because you can feel those emotions doesn't mean you have to get on board. And to be disciplined means to do the right thing when you feel like doing the wrong thing. When you feel like saying something that you know you shouldn't say, no, don't get on board. If things aren't going your way and you kind of feel like being discouraged, no, you've got to learn to discipline the negative feelings and keep a good attitude anyway. If somebody offends you, you feel like holding a grudge, no, discipline that emotion and learn to forgive them anyway.
Trying to handle heartbreak, it's so important that we understand there has to be output to our life. Listen to me, if you're broken, don't take a break. Don't let the person who didn't love you stop you from meeting the person who will love you. See, what the enemy wants to do is the enemy wants to isolate you. And the enemy wants you to find some valley, and he wants you to camp out in that valley and say, nobody understands me, and nobody knows how bad my heart is broken, and nobody gets me, and because nobody gets me, I'm gonna go and do this thing all on my own. But I have come to remind you that that is a lie from the pit of hell. That is simply a reaction. And if you're ever gonna rebuild, it's gonna require to share with one another and walk through it together.
I'm going to make it. It's possible. Your dream is possible. Say that to yourself every day. Feed your mind with words that you write and words that you speak to yourself. Feed your faith, and your doubts will starve to death. It's possible. It's possible. Even when you have no evidence to point to, say to yourself, it's possible. There's nothing as powerful as a made-up mind. It's a struggle sometimes to do that, especially when you have people around you telling you that it's not possible. And they're constantly pointing out your failures of the past, constantly reminding you of all of the things that you don't have going for you.
Pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons. And if we live a lazy, undisciplined life, and we just give in to our feelings, and we act on these emotional impulses, we're going to make very poor choices that we regret later on. We would be much better off to just discipline ourselves right now, so that later on, we don't have to carry that heavy load of regret. I mean, how many times have we acted on our emotions and said something that we know we shouldn't say, and later on, it ends up hurting us in that relationship? How many people today act on their emotions and they get involved in a relationship outside of their marriage, and later on, it ends up tearing the whole family apart? Friends, the pain of discipline is minuscule compared to the pain of regret.
How many marriages have ended because of social media? Your grandparents that's been married for 30, 40, 50 years did not have social media to contribute to the dysfunction of their marriage. We are growing up in a technology age where communicating and social networking has went to a whole nother stratosphere. So technically, it's became even more challenging to be in a functioning, healthy marriage or relationship.
How easy is it to get up in the morning when you know you're not doing all that it takes? It's not very easy at all. You can just lay there awake thinking, oh, what's a few more minutes in bed? It won't matter much anyway. Wrong. It does matter. It will matter. Now, how easy is it to get up in the morning when you're pouring it on, doing the best you can, anxious to get going, make progress toward your dreams? It's a whole different story. When you're resting to renew your reserves, it's much different than resting to avoid your day. When you're psyched up and excited for your life, when you're excited for what you've planned to accomplish for the day, it's amazing you'll wake up before the alarm clock even tries to startle you awake. Your successes fuel your ambition. Your successes give you extra energy. Your successes pave the way for more successes. It's the snowball effect. With one success, you're excited to meet another, and another, and another. And pretty soon, the disciplines that were so difficult in the beginning, the disciplines that got you going, are now part of your philosophy. How do you know when you're successful? Do you have to be a millionaire? No. All we ask of you is that you earn all you possibly can. If you earn $10,000 a year and that's the best you can do, that's enough. God and everything else will see to it that you're okay. The key is to just do the best you can. If it's $10,000 a year, wonderful. If it's $100,000 a year, wonderful. If it's $1 million a year, wonderful. It doesn't matter 10,000 a year or $1 million a year. It doesn't matter as long as you've done the best you possibly can. Earn the most you possibly can. Be the most you possibly can. And here's why. The essence of life is growth. The essence of life is growth, to do the best you can. And here's what's interesting. Humans are the only life form that will do less than they possibly can. Humans are the only life form that will settle for less. Every other life form except human beings strive to its maximum capacity. How tall will a tree grow? Approximately. As tall as it possibly can. You never heard of a tree growing half as high as it could. No, trees don't grow half. Trees send their roots down as deep as possible, stretch their limbs up as high as possible, produce every leaf possible and every fruit possible. As a matter of fact, you never heard of a human physically growing half. We keep growing until we're done. Now that's a part of life we can't control.
Find out who you're associating with. If those people add something to you, if they give you something in return, or is it all just a give and take, meaning like they just take and then you give? That's a bad relationship, man. Get the negative energy out of life. These people that you're around, they're always complaining and everything else. They're taking part of your soul. You only have so much to give every single day. Why waste it on that, guys? You gotta love yourself in order to love somebody else, guys. You gotta be whole and happy with who you are if you can never help somebody else out. People say, oh, it's selfish to just care about yourself. Well, if you need some fixing and reworking, it's not selfish, because you can get yourself better and then be able to really lend a hand in an honest way to somebody to really help them out.
I want you to ask yourself, do I love myself enough to give myself permission to go after what I want? Like, do I love myself enough to exercise this weekend? Do I love myself enough to study that extra hour? Because when you can start saying yes to loving yourself, you start to realize just how far you're able to go. And I wish people knew that the ability to succeed, it's all inside of you. It's never been hidden. It's just, do you love yourself enough to let it out? The best version of yourself is so beautiful and so amazing. And yes, people may not accept you all the time and they may hurt you, but I don't want you to keep that in, because you were meant to be a certain type of person, and there's somebody out there in this world who needs to see you for who you are.
The growing of our minds, the expansion of our minds, that we can control. And that's what tends to get away from us. All life forms inherently strive to their max except human beings. Now, why wouldn't human beings strive to their maximum possibility? Here's why. Because we've been given the dignity of choice. It makes us different than alligators and trees and birds. The dignity of choice makes us different than all other life forms. And here's the choice: to become part of what we could be, enough to get by, or to become all that we can be. My best advice for you is to choose the all. Earn all you can, make all the friends you can, read as many books as you can, develop as many skills as you can, see as much as possible, do as much as possible, make as much fortune as possible, give as much of it away as possible. The max. There's no life like it. I'm telling you, once I got on track, I've never looked back. Pick up the challenge. Go for it. Take the best of the two easies. Take the root of it's easy to get ahead. It's easy to do all you can. It's easy to succeed. It's easy to have financial freedom. The more you do, the more you get. So the two primary benefits of positive reinforcement are, number one, to build good habits, and number two, to create more energy to fuel your ambitions, your desires, your achievements. How can you isolate what's working for you and what isn't? How can you make sure that you are reinforcing your positive disciplines? Well, if it isn't apparent, easy to see right away, if what you're doing is happening in such small increments that you're not sure if you're on track, then you need to be writing it down. You need to keep a journal anyway. But if you really aren't sure that what you're doing is making measurable progress, You need to keep a written record. You need to write down everything that may be relevant in your day. What you did, who you saw, what you felt, how it may or may not affect you now and in the future. The best way to track your activities of the day is to write them down. The best way to track your activities of the week is to write them down. The best way to analyze your progress through the year is to have written it down. Why? So you can look back on it. Because by keeping a written record of your life, you will be more accountable. By putting into writing the action steps that you have planned, you will easily see what works and what doesn't. Most people just try to get through the day, never writing anything down, never keeping track of their progress along the way, never really knowing if they are doing all they can to reach their goals, to drive their ambition. But gifted people learn to get from the day. They don't let a day end without picking up some valuable experience, some emotional content, some idea that may positively affect their future. To get the most from a day, to learn the most from a day, you need to be able to reflect on the day. And how can you reflect on a day unless you record it in history?